Triple-double Trayce is one great way to cleanse the palate and get the first win in Big Ten play this season.
You are Locked On Hoosiers, your daily podcast on the Indiana Hoosiers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody? Welcome into another episode of Locked On Hoosiers, your one and only daily one-stop shop for everything IU athletics. I'm your host, as always, Jacob Rude. Want to thank you for making us your first listen this Thursday. Another Victory Thursday on this week, and this one came with a bit of history attached to it. IU picks up its first Big Ten win of the season at home against Nebraska. 81-65 is the final. And Trayce Jackson-Davis becomes the third player in IU basketball, men's basketball history to record a triple-double. Finishes with 12 points, 11 rebounds, 10 assists. The 10th assist came at the very end of the game on an and one to Trey Galloway. Boy, are we going to talk about him. But what an accomplishment for Trayce, who did a bit of everything on Monday, added as well 3 blocks and 3 steals. On Wednesday night, stat tweeted out by, I believe, OptaStats that said it was Trayce Jackson-Davis is the first D1 player to have a points, rebounds, assists, triple-double, while also having 3+ blocks and 3+ steals since Arizona's Luke Walton did it against USC January 17th of 2002. He was 2 rebounds, 2 steals, 2 blocks away from a 5x5, which is not something that ever happens. NBA, college, anything of that sort. Remarkable performance from him. And he didn't even have to do it scoring the ball a ton. He controlled the game. And we saw teams are going to throw doubles, throw zones at Indiana, and this was a counterpunch to that. It was a really positive palate cleanser, like I said, for that frustrating Rutgers game to come back and play like this, to win a game in which you don't need Trayce to look incredible. Xavier Johnson looked, we'll talk about him too, but not a great outing from him either. And yet you win this game very comfortably, I think is about as good as you could draw it up in terms of kind of erasing the memories of that Rutgers game and to head into this Arizona game, in the right mindset. So excited about this one, but hats off to Trayce. He said after the game that these are the kinds of things he came back to IU for on top of the team success. I mean, this is still a really cool honor. I remember it being a really big deal when Juwan Morgan did it a handful of years ago. I loved that everybody in the stands knew that he was 2 assists away when he came back and knew he was 1 assist away when he found Trey Galloway. He got the rightful ovation that he deserved. Awesome for him. Like I said, a great palate cleanser. The way IU won was most important in this, that it was a team effort. It was a balanced attack, and it was done with a great defense as well. IU jumped out, I believe, to a 20-5 lead. They jumped out to a big lead early. Nebraska could not get things rolling. They finished shooting 42.9% from the field, but they were 36.6% in the first half, just 6 of 23 from the three-point line. They were obviously without one of their top players. IU was out with Jalen Hood-Schifino. I guess that leveled things a bit. Really hope Jalen is going to be healthy and ready for that Arizona game, because IU really, really needs him for that one. But leveling the field in that regard helped. What helped the most, as I said, was that balanced attack. Trey Galloway had 20 to lead IU in scoring. Tamar Bates had 19, his best game ever for IU, I would think. between the opponent. I know he's had higher scoring nights, but it was a Big Ten opponent this time. The way he scored, the efficiency with which he scored. If you get something like this, Tamar Bates, this is great, great news. Obviously, it's one game, but hopefully it's a game that kind of ignites and is used as a springboard into better performances. Same for Trey Galloway. Miller Kopp had 13 points. He only hit 1-3 to do that. He was 6 of 11 from the field, 5 of 6 inside the arc. So I would not have anticipated that. It was a lot of the role players stepping up, which, considering the kind of rant that I went on earlier this week about IU's depth and how we spent the beginning of the season talking about there being depth and then it just not showing up for repeated big games. This was a great response to the UNC game, the Xavier game, the Rutgers game. I know the opponent wasn't quite as good, but to have them do something against a like cupcake, if I'm being quite honest, is great news. And they did a lot of somethings. This wasn't some kind of a slightly above average performance. Trey and Tamar were a combined 9 of 14 from 3. If they can do something like that, that's just such terrific news. This is probably best case scenario of what you're ever going to get. Trey Galloway isn't going to be hitting step back 3-pointers off the dribble in probably any other game this season, but those open threes are going to be there. The same with Tamar Bates. Those open threes are going to be there. So I do think there are things you can take from this game and from this performance that you can apply to other games, because like I said, and like we've seen, that Rutgers game tonight as well, teams are going to throw double, even triple teams at Trayce Jackson-Davis when that ball gets in the post. He's adept enough at finding the open guy when he's doubled and tripled, and it's coming down to whether that guy can make the shot, whether that guy can make the play. Miller, Trey, Tamar, they all made the plays on Wednesday, and that's how IU wins comfortably, with getting, at least points-wise, not a ton of production out of Trayce or Xavier Johnson in this one. Ultimately, I think the best way to wrap this, or to recap, I should say, this game, IU shot 32 of 60, 53% from the field, 11 of 25, 44% from 3. After the game, Mike Woodson, quote, "Life is pretty damn good when you make shots." Simple as that. He said after the game that IU had open shots against Rutgers. They did not make. They made those shots on Wednesday. Life feels a whole lot better. The sky isn't falling, and there's a lot more optimism on the horizon. Let's talk specifics about Tamar, about Trey, Miller, Xavier, all those guys. Before we dive into that, though, LinkedIn is one of our sponsors today. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. That's where LinkedIn comes in. You can post your job for free there, add it to your profile so all of your connections, all of your network know you're hiring. They're going to have screening questions to make it simpler for you to find the right candidate. So honestly, you're not wasting time interviewing people who aren't the right fit for your company, for your business, whatever it may be. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn number 1 in delivering quality hires versus the leading competitors. So LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Thanks again for making Locked On Hoosiers your first listen today, every single day. For your second listen today, check out Locked On Sports Today. From the games that matter the most to the biggest stories in sports, go beyond the scoreboard and behind the scenes with local experts and insights only Locked On can provide. Locked On Sports Today, available on this app, YouTube, wherever you guys get your podcast app. Let's start with Trey Galloway. as we highlight some performances. We talked about Trayce in that first one, so we don't need to kind of further go on talking about him. Although, shout out the one-handed rebound he had. If you guys watch the game, you know what I'm talking about. In that first half, just goes up left-handed, just palms the ball, comes down with it. One of the most absurd rebounds I've ever seen. I just wanted to mention that. Trey Galloway, 27 minutes, 7 of 10 from the field, 4 of 6 from 3, 20 points, 4 rebounds, and assist. This is like a idealized version of what you would want from Trey, maybe a little bit more ball handling and playmaking, but outside of that, this is it. This is what you want. He spoke after the game that his injury that he had surgery on in the offseason led to him doing a lot more stationary shooting, which led to some more repetitiveness or repetition, I should say. And that's what matters when you're doing spot up 3-point shooting, as he's doing on most of these scenarios. His 3-pointer has looked improved this season, even if it hasn't always been, I guess, reliable, or it hasn't always fallen. I mean, he's taking it at a higher rate. He is making it is seemingly at a higher rate, even before going 4 of 6 from 3 on Wednesday. So there is an improvement just in the confidence in his shot, which matters. It matters as much as anything. Coming into tonight, it was just 28.6%. He was 2 of 7. So I guess it wasn't quite the jump that I thought, but going 4 of 6 is going to make that percentage look a lot better. It feels like he's shooting the ball with more confidence. I guess maybe I'm factoring in some of the exhibition games as well. But yeah, I mean, Trey normally gets his points going to the rim. Those spot up opportunities are going to be there. He's slotted into the starting lineup, obviously, tonight, and that led to even more spot up opportunities. He's going to have to take them if he's on the court. You can't turn those down, and there's not going to be an easier shot to take than a wide open 3-pointer. The same goes for Tamar Bates, 25 minutes, 7 of 12 from the field, 5 of 8 from 3, 19 points, 4 rebounds, 2 assists. The two of them also only had 1 turnover. That is as important as anything. But Tamar feels like someone that the 3-point shooting could be a bit more sustainable. Part of it's because he is a scorer. Like, that is what that's what he does. That's kind of his calling card. He was 34.8% coming into tonight. That's going to also take a big jump after this one, but it's the same thing. Those shots weren't particularly like challenging necessarily. Like, there was some swing 3-pointers and some spot up 3-pointers and stuff like that when you're on the floor with Trayce, those are going to be available. He's going to kick it out, couple swings, and you're going to be the open guy in the corner shooting the 3. You're going to be the guy on the wing if he makes a skip pass shooting the 3. That's where Trey and Tamar are going to find these shots at. If you make those shots, you're going to see a lot of playing time, and theoretically they're easier shots to make, the open ones. So finding that rhythm, knocking down those shots, that's what you need out of the guys around Trayce, whether it's Trey. Miller Kopp's done it great this season. Xavier, Tamar, Jalen Hood-Schifino's been streaky about it. But that's what you need around Trayce, is guys who can step into those open looks and knock them down. And that's, in a lot of ways, it's going to be the difference in whether IU is competing at the highest levels or not, because those shots are going to be there and teams are going to dare IU to make them until they start consistently making them. It's interesting timing to do it now because it might factor into that Arizona game plan a little bit. Maybe guys close out a little bit harder on Trey or Tamar, or they don't wander as far away. Maybe that opens things up for Trayce. But ultimately, number one on the scouting report is going to be contain Trayce Jackson-Davis by any means possible, which means those open shots are going to be there for various guys. On Wednesday, Trey and Tamar knocked them down. They're going to need to continue knocking them down because they're going to continue to be there. Xavier Johnson. That was back-to-back not pretty games from him. and at a time when IU really needed him to have big games. With Jalen out, he has not stepped up to the plate in the game at Rutgers or the game tonight. He was 2 of 8 from the field, had 4 points, a rebound, 2 fouls, 4 assists, 7 turnovers, and a steal. A couple of the turnovers were, I think on back-to-back plays he had charges. They were kind of questionable, but it's a matter of Xavier has to know he can't put himself in that situation. Like, he has to play with more control. He's the only point guard, natural point guard Indiana has. He's a veteran leader out there. He has to be smarter than that. And I know I can zoom in on these isolated incidents and they're 50-50 calls that maybe they should have went the other way, but don't leave it in the judgment of the refs, especially Big Ten refs. You have to be smarter out there. And that's been my main complaint the last 2 games is he's just not, he seems like he's trying to do too much and trying to like carry the entire load, I guess. And it's been bad the last 2 games. Nobody should be happier that Trey, Miller, Tamar played some of their best games of the season than Xavier, because if IU struggles or goes down in this one, I think a lot of people are zooming in on Xavier's stat line and back-to-back Big Ten games and wondering what's going on there. Hopefully Jalen's back and that takes some stuff off his plate and maybe he's able to get back into his natural role or a role he's more familiar with this season. I'm not really sure, but you can't have games when you're the only point guard and you have 7 turnovers and are committing some silly fouls, some silly offensive fouls. Regardless if the Big Ten officials are doing Big Ten officials things, don't leave it in their hands is my biggest thing. Miller Kopp, I will continue to eat crow. I didn't expect this. I didn't think he could score like this or contribute like this. 13 points, 6 of 11 shooting, 1 of 5 from 3. He was doing a lot of his work in the paint. Floaters, little baseline jumpers, little shots around the paint. Kudos to him, man. Teams are going to close out on him really hard, and those types of shots are going to be there if he can beat his man and either draw a defender or just knock down that little mid-range shot by any means necessary, whether it's a pull-up jumper, whether it's a floater, whatever it may be. That's what he was doing on Wednesday. They were closing out hard. He was going around his man and knocking down that little in-between shot there. So 13 points, 4 rebounds, 3 assists. Big credit to him. He's been as reliable as anybody this season in terms of role players. I mean, honestly, outside of Trayce, he might be the next most reliable Hoosier this season. It was Xavier for a little bit, but these last 2 games have kind of knocked him down a little bit. Miller's been about as reliable as anybody has this season. So I didn't see that coming. I didn't expect that in the least bit. Another hat tip to him. I'll continue to eat crow on that one because he continues to perform extremely well. And so kudos to him on that. Big win for Indiana. We'll talk about the Arizona game in tomorrow's episode. But what a great way to kind of get rid of the Rutgers game and head into the Arizona game with a lot better vibes, a lot more momentum on that one. IU women's team has their road opener in the Big Ten tonight. We'll talk about their trip to Penn State, what to expect from the Nittany Lions in this one. Now, there are no lines up quite yet for IU Arizona, but if you guys want to do some betting this weekend, head on over to betonline.net. They are your number one source for sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. Can bet on the World Cup as well. For those of you that are enjoying the soccer, it's back on Friday. Through the weekend, there'll be World Cup action. So if you guys want to do some betting to spice some things up there, you can head on over to betonline.net. The fastest and easiest way to get your betting fix. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. Bet online, where the game starts. Let's talk IU women's basketball. They look to remain unbeaten as they travel to a place they've actually struggled historically at, Penn State. Tip-off is tonight at 7 p.m. in the Bryce Jordan Center on BTN Plus. I honestly do recommend getting BTN Plus. I got it this season. It's been a very useful addition. You can watch replays right away, and the IU women's team is one of the best in the country. I've complained in the past that I don't know why the number 3 team in the nation is behind a paywall, but speaking of deaf ears, and so be it. But the number 3 team in the nation will be behind a paywall. I recommend getting BTN Plus. If you guys don't have it, you can try to tune in on the radio, maybe something else. If there are other sites you can find the game on, I'm not sure if those exist, but if some of you have them, it's also available on the radio 105.1 in the Bloomington area. But as I said, IU historically just 18-33 against Penn State, 6-22 on the road. Just one of those bugaboo teams, it seems like, for Indiana. Now, that being said, they have dominated this rivalry in recent years, dating back to 2015. IU has won 9 of the last 10 games, the one loss, predictably, in Pennsylvania. But outside of that, they've won the last 5. They had that loss in 2018. They won the 4 before that. Predating that, though, I mean, obviously this was a rivalry thoroughly dominated by Penn State. If we're talking about winning 9 of the last 10, that means at one point they were 9-32 against Penn State. Whew. So a place where, at least dating back, Indiana struggled in recent years, especially under Terry Morin, not so much. Still, though, you never know when those old demons might arise. This Penn State team, an interesting one. They're 7-2 on the season. They won their first 7 games. They lost their previous 2. If you look at the net, they're ranked 52nd. That's really all we kind of have to go on with some of these teams. For reference, Memphis was 51st. Indiana handled them pretty well in Las Vegas. So right around in that area, Memphis, they beat by 15 points. It's not apples to apples. That doesn't mean IU's going to win by 16 points tonight, but Bowling Green is only a couple spots lower than that, and IU beat them by 30-some. So right there in that range where IU's handled the opponents they played there, but Big Ten games on the road always have a different vibe to them than random non-conference games, obviously. Like I said, they won their first 7, not against particularly great competition. Syracuse, the only Power 5 school they played during that span, lost to Virginia handily in the Big Ten ACC Challenge, and then lost to Minnesota on Saturday in their Big Ten opener in double overtime, 98-96. Players to watch in this one, the big one, the main one, McKenna Marissa, guard for Penn State, one of the very best players in the conference, one of the best guards in the country. I don't feel like that's much of an exaggeration. 18.7 points, 4.8 rebounds, 4.4 assists, 2.0 steals, shooting 46.7% from the field, 46.2% from 3. That's on 39 attempts. So over 4 attempts per game. And she's making nearly half of them. Like I said, as good of a player as you're going to find in the Big Ten this season. And so she's going to be the next one that Indiana has to deal with. They dealt with Makira Cook. They didn't really deal with her. Makira Cook kind of had her way with Indiana on Sunday. And Marissa's coming off a 34-point game against Minnesota in that double overtime loss. So good luck. Have fun with that one. That's going to be another tough challenge for the Hoosiers. Not that Penn State's a one-person team. Leilani Kapnis is averaging 10 points, 6 rebounds per game, shooting 54% from the field. Then Shea Shecky is averaging 10 points, shooting 37.2% from the three-point line. But a lot of the focus is going to be on McKenna Marissa. Rightfully so. You'll get to watch one of the best players in the Big Ten, one of the best guards in the country if you tune into this game on BTN Plus. Another chance for a quality win, depending on how things shake up, potentially another quad one win if Penn State plays well during Big Ten play this season. But this continues to be not the toughest opening possible for IU in terms of Big Ten play, but not the easiest one either, to face an upstart Illinois team and then one of the best players in the Big Ten as your first two games. It could be harder, but it could be a lot easier. We'll see how the Hoosiers handle that one tonight. Like I said, 7 o'clock on BTN Plus. Thanks for tuning in to Locked On Hoosiers yet again today. Thanks for making us your first listen. We'll be back tomorrow to recap that women's game, to preview the men's game against Arizona. One of the big ones on the schedule. We'll get you all set for that one. For your next listen, check out the Locked On Sports Today podcast. The biggest stories of the day, plus instant reactions, big game recaps, and the take of the day, available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get podcasts. Follow us on Twitter, subscribe to the podcast, all of that great stuff. Appreciate all the support you guys continue to give us. Most importantly, though, guys, I hope you all have a great Thursday. We're almost to the end of the week. As always, though, LEO.